Okay, now the second question that we're going to cover today is this mystery of Christ appearing in another shape or in another form. This is also in the Summa Theologiae of St. Thomas Aquinas. It's in Tertia Pars. It's the third part. Question 55, Article 4. And St. Thomas Aquinas asked the question, whether Christ should have appeared to the disciples in another shape. And we find this in Mark chapter 16. It reads, quote, after Christ appeared in another shape to two of them walking as they were going into the country. So here this is talking about the two disciples on the road to Emmaus. Christ begins to walk with them. He begins to talk with them. They talk about the Bible. They talk about the law and the prophets. And the entire time, these two disciples of Christ don't know that it is the resurrected Christ. It's not till they arrive and Christ takes bread, and when he breaks the bread, he disappears, and they realize that was Jesus Christ with us the whole time. But yet he was in another form and in another shape. Why is that? Thomas Aquinas explains. He says, I answer that, as stated above, Christ's resurrection was to be manifested to men in the same way as divine things are revealed. But divine things are revealed to men in various ways, according as they are variously disposed. For those who have their minds well disposed perceive divine things rightly, whereas those not disposed perceive them with a certain confusion of doubt or error. And then he quotes St. Paul, for the sensual man perceiveth not those things that are of the Spirit of God. Thomas Aquinas then says, consequently, after the resurrection appeared in his own shape to some who were well disposed to belief, while he appeared in another shape to them who seemed to be already growing tepid in their faith. Luke 24, we hoped that it was he who should have redeemed Israel. Hence, St. Gregory the Great says, he showed himself to them in the body such as he was in their minds. For because he was yet a stranger to faith in their hearts, he made pretense of going farther, that is, as if he were a stranger. So he says, to the degree that they believed and discerned Jesus being resurrected in their heart or in their mind, was to the degree that they could recognize him with their eyes. So you'll remember Mary Magdalene. She's there weeping, and she thinks the man next to her is the gardener. It says that in the gospel. She thinks it's the gardener. Now, there's actually something beautiful and mysterious because Adam was a gardener, and he was in the garden. And Christ is the new Adam, and he's in the garden, right? So there is something mystical going on here, but she thinks he's just the gardener. And she says, where have they laid him? And he says, Mary. And as soon as she hears the voice, Mary, Miriam, she says, Rabboni, my rabbi. And she believes in that moment, and she sees him. So in that moment of confusion, where are they laid him? She thinks it's the gardener. She can't tell it's him. But as soon as she believes, she does see that it is him. So that's why he appears in a different form. And I think it's kind of beautiful. It's a mystery. It shows throughout the gospel, Christ is secretive. You know, he tells the man he cures from leprosy, don't talk about it. He tells the apostles certain things, and he says, don't talk about it. So he has this sort of restraint, and he's revealing himself gradually. That's why sometimes I say, if it's someone who's very new to Christianity, it may not be the best thing to take them for their first introduction to Christianity to Mass. You might hear me say that and be like, well, why not? In the early church, the first time people got to go to Mass and be present for the consecration was after they were baptized, after they had been initiated. They didn't even teach the catechumens the Our Father and the Creed till later on in their catechesis, because they wanted to, like Christ says, don't cast your pearls before swine. You kind of gradually and gently lead people along and give them more and more and more as their faith grows. An ancient principle, I think, that comes directly from Jesus Christ. So When you think of the wounds of Christ, and yes, by the way, you might have heard that he had to be nailed in his wrists, not in his hands. That's not really true. He was nailed in his hands and in his feet. Not one bone was broken. And they took him down. And that's why the scriptures say his hands and his feet. And the Psalms say they dug out my hands and they dug out my feet. So think about this. And I think the challenge for you and for me is, if Christ appeared to us, is our faith strong enough in our heart to be able to discern him with our eyes? Remember, even when Thomas saw him, he wasn't yet fully believing until he put his hands into the side wound, into the hands. And then he really recognized this is Jesus. It's almost like when we have no faith and no love for God, not only is our heart dim, but our eyes are dim. We can't even see the miracles that are around us because we don't have faith.